Let's see if I could do double duty with the camera blocking the light and also recording. Anyways, I want to talk about the scope of a book, of any particular book, because in Heart of Darkness, in Halcyon Days, in Kaleidoscope, and in Love Conquers All, and all the books ended up a little bit larger in scope than I thought they would. And I say this because the current book, well, I'm actually working on a few things. Some of them proactively, some of them reactively. You know, some books, what I'll do is if I get content, I'll move them to the book and that's it. And whenever it's time to work on that project, it's there. Like, there might be 5 poems, there might be 20 poems, there might be 50. Anyways, but the most complex one is the Masquerade. I haven't gone public with the full title, but the whole point's that when I conceptualized this book and I was thinking about it, it was the classic Masquerade example that you might see in any story. So I like that a lot. But after thinking about it for a little bit, the book began growing in scope quite quickly because there was more characters and the story, it's kind of growing into its own thing. And I don't want to cap it. So I'm either going to rewrite a new Masquerade book or just redo some of the scenes slightly, because I still like the idea and I still think that you can convey, man, it's kind of hard because I know some things that'll happen and without referencing, for me to make it easier to talk about what I want to talk about would give away too much of the book or anything else. But the whole point's that the book has grown in scope, and I'm still a new writer, even though I've published 5 books. I have no problem, admitting that I'm still learning, and I know that I'll always be learning. But the whole point of this channel is to help people not make the same mistakes that I'm making. So I'm not sure if this is a mistake, because as far as when a book grows in scope, and I say this because sometimes a poem, I'll be writing one poem, but in reality it almost reads like 2, and I'll split them up into 2 or 3 poems. I don't often say that, but it happens enough times, not the majority of times or anything like that, but I often wonder whether any author has done that with a book. And I know that you'll have a story within a story many times, and that could be its own book or whatever, but the whole point's that I'm uncertain whether or not I want to go in one completely separate direction and just do something standalone with a Masquerade like that, or what I'm doing right now, which involves a lot of characters. And there's a reason I'm willingly choosing a lot of characters, but I know that could convolute the story, even though each character has a key role to play. So for instance, I mentioned in one of the posts, you have the king, the tyrant, the magician, the sorceress, the princess, the knight, blah blah blah. You have stereotypes, and I want most of them to be stereotypes because I want to explore those stereotypes through writing, but perhaps in not traditional ways. Some ways they'll be traditional and some ways they won't. But the whole point is that the book's growing in scope and I'm kind of unsure where to go. I'm going to remain fluid and I'm just going to write. So if it all fails, at least content's being created. And I like that because one way or another, when I'm writing, things are getting done. Whether I use the content for the book or another book, or perhaps a poem, or even some sort of blog or whatever. You'd be kind of surprised how fluid writing can be. But anyways, I say that so people can consider various options that they might have when it comes to writing. If you're working on something, don't be afraid of trying something else, but ultimately don't stop yourself from writing. That's not what I'm planning on doing or whatever do, but continue writing. And just because something doesn't fit in one story doesn't mean you can't use it later on. Especially if you're just following through with something that feels right, even if it's growing beyond the scope of what you think it's possible. Because ultimately, a lot of times, stories are really hard to create if you're forcing them, but when they come out naturally, oh man, it's seamless. It's like breathing. So keep that in mind. If you happen to be stuck, or maybe not stuck, or you don't know exactly where you're heading, the winds just take you wherever they may. So keep that in mind. Talk to you guys later. Bye.